Welcome to Toppywen, the only podcast you will ever need where the W is important. Rebirth. That's the topic of this episode. Elden Ring. It's a game I've been playing on the Xbox Series X. It's set in a fantasy, medieval world of witches and wizards and Warcraft and dragons and very Game of Thrones-esque. In fact, the writer of Game of Thrones, George R.R.R. Martin, allegedly had some input into the creation of this world. I'm not sure how much. If you want to follow the progress of the character that I created, blue skin, green hair, then sign up to my page on Instagram and Twitter. But this game is a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. And it's certainly shifting the idea of a living, breathing world on from the likes of Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, Space Invaders. Doesn't make those any less of a game. But in terms of living in an environment and believing you're there and dreaming about said game. The last time that I lived, breathed and dreamed a game, as far as I can remember, was Doom in the 90s. I'd play it during the day and I'd see it during the night. Every waking and sleeping moment and eating. I ate Doom. I shat Doom, I slept Doom, I ate, I came, I saw, I shat Doom and Elden Ring. There's a character in Elden Ring called Rennala. She's a boss battle. And when you defeat her, she doesn't die. She sits on a chair and she holds some kind of baby thing in her arms. And if you've got a larval tear, for those of you who don't play games these days consist of going round an open world. It used to be that there was like a bat and a ball on a screen. These days they've got it to the point where they've created an alternate universe that you can walk around in at your leisure. And in these alternate universes, they're populated with just endless items that you can pick up. So if it was this room now, if this was a game, you'd have like press the Y button to pick up Yellow Shaker. Press the Y button to pick up Samsung Galaxy Note 9 mobile phone. Press Y button to pick up red thing. Like everything, you'd be like pipe, empty can of Coke, knife, bottle of XO French brandy aged 5 years, pen, and you just go around, click, 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 click. And one of these things in Elden Ring is a larval tear. And when you offer Rennala, the boss that you defeated, who holds this baby thing, when you offer her a larval tear, it allows you to reallocate your life statistics. Now let's talk about this. In role-playing games, historically, dating back to the 70s of Dungeons and Dragons, you create a character, and the way that the character's created, because you and I are individuals, we're unique, and the way you write that on paper is by having statistics. And Elden Ring has a similar thing going on. You can have a statistic for strength. A number that sums up your strength, your dexterity, your intelligence, your faith. And when you offer Rennala a larval tear, you can change your stats. So if you're a big butch bloke who holds a big axe, and you're all about the strength statistic, you've got 100 strength, and you've got like 5 intelligence and 0 faith. You're a sword wielder. It's about swords versus magic, swords and sorcery. You get the strength builds and you get the intelligence, faith, magic builds. And you can say to Rennala, I know I'm a big butch bloke with lots of muscles and holding a big club, but I'd like to reduce that strength. I'd like to put those statistics into my intelligence and my faith. I want to hold a wand, not a dagger. Statistics being used to represent the person. Imagine that in real life. Because we got nerds, we got athletes, we got prom queens. The whole gamut of people, from train spotters to Brad Pitt, with everything in between. Every nuance. So you've got to imagine your personal statistics if you're a role-playing game character. Let's say it's all out of 100 and you've got your strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, endurance. Where do you put those numbers for yourself. Where do you rate yourself on that scale? I put myself kind of average for strength. I'd put myself above average for intelligence. You can do whatever you like, can't you? You're judging yourself. It'd be funny to ask someone else to then judge you. List of stats, marks out of 100. Someone else gives you marks for strength and dexterity and endurance and faith, memory, and then compare that to what you would put down. But in any case, it gives you a way to judge the person, either a character in a game or you in real life. And then you have to look at what your strengths are in real life. My blue-skinned, green-haired character in Elden Ring, his skill in life is holding a great big colossal sword. A sword made of other swords. You can kind of see the George R. Martin influence coming through here. A massive sword that's as big as me, made of other swords. And swinging that sword. He's got zero interest in magic. He's got zero magic stats. He's all about holding a big sword. And then you think, well, it's unlikely that your skill in real life is holding a great big sword that's as big as you and killing people with it. But think what your skill is. If I had to kind of do a one word for my skill in life, I'd probably say music. Playing the guitar. Why not? Let's pick that. Playing the guitar. So there you go. Male, white skin, brown hair, plays guitar. My life summed up. What's interesting is that anyone who's watched my videos will know this. I've always had a fascination with the drums. I'm forever drumming on my thighs, drumming on my body, drumming in my head. It's like my whole life has a rhythm to it. Tapping on desks with my hands, with pencils as drumsticks. I watch people play the piano and I just wish I could do that. I mean, properly, just playing the piano. Sight reading music. Although I consider myself a pretty good musician, I can't sight read music. I can work things out. I can get the gist of music on a page. I came from the era of learning guitar by just watching videos, listening to music, reading guitar tablature, which is where you draw the guitar strings on a page and put numbers according to the frets where you put your fingers. A simplified version of music notation. If I could rewind time, I'd like to play the drums and read music. Blue skin, green hair, holds massive sword. White skin, brown hair, plays guitar. Think about your skill, how you're defined. It takes 10,000 hours of intensive practice to achieve mastery of complex skills. That's a statement that someone made, Google it, and people hold it to be true. 10,000 hours of intensive practice to master a skill. So you've got your skill set. Let's just say you allocated yourself as train spotter or runner or drummer or guitar player. But you want to be something else. I no longer want to just be a guitar player. I want to be a drummer. So how long is it going to take me, the Mercurial number 6, to learn how to play drums? 10,000 hours, apparently. So how long is 10,000 hours? Well, let's say you intensively practice for 8 hours a day, every day. That means to learn the drums, it's going to take me 1,250 days. But that's playing the drums, practicing the drums for 8 hours, solidly, no lunch break, every single day, no days off. That's 3.5 years. 8 hours a day, 3.5 years. Now let's factor in the weekends, because you've got to give yourself the weekends off. That's 4.5 years. And this was no holiday. Just doing 8 hours a day with the weekends off for 4.5 years. I'll be able to play the drums at a really decent level. But how am I living through this? Through this intensive practice? Who's paying me? How am I affording this lifestyle? So let's review this 8 hours a day thing. I can't play 8 hours a day. Let's assume I can put 2 hours of practice in a night. Every night. And let's also assume that I can put a few more hours in at the weekends. Let's say that I can do 5 hours a day at the weekends, 2 hours in each evening and 5 hours a day at the weekends. We're looking at roughly 13 years of intensive, dedicated practice to learn a new skill. So if you currently play the guitar and you want to also play the drums, 13 years. Dedicate 13 years to it. And let's be honest here, the way a lot of people became experts in the skill that they picked as their defining moment, and likely the skill that you picked as your defining moment, your role-playing game characteristic. If you started young enough at something, when you were at school, when you could spend many hours in each evening and at weekends, and perhaps when you were a student, when you could spend many solid days doing something, or if you were unemployed, spend many... Basically, if you can devote your youth to something, that's how you achieve that skill. To achieve something in adulthood, a new skill, 13, 14 years of doing nothing but that in every moment of your spare time. 13 years. To respec yourself. To respec your character. Your rebirth takes 14 years. I'm one of those guys who I watch a film. When I was a kid, it was something like The Karate Kid. Or Star Wars or something. And I'd leave the cinema, or even just leave the TV set. And I'd do the crane move if I was like Ralph Macchio in The Karate Kid. And I'd do that thing where you put your arms up like he does at the end. Puts his arm into the crane and stands on one leg and does the kick. I'd come out doing that. Or if I went to watch Rocky, I'd come out punching the air. You watch these films, Queen's Gambit, chess. You watch, you become emotionally invested, intellectually invested, physically invested to a certain extent, punching the air. And you come out and you're jumping around, you're thinking, yeah, I'll go to the gym. Yeah, punch, punch, punch. Yeah, why not? Why not? It's like the character in the film, you ascribe part of what they could achieve to yourself. You watch Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and you come out thinking, yo, ow, ow, just chopping the air and everything. I don't think it's just me who does that. I think we all do that. We come out of something and we're all hyped up for it. And then we realise, subconsciously or not, but it's going to take us 14 years to achieve that. And then we wind our necks in and go back to whatever it is that our RPG character definition was. Train spotter, baker, guitar player, candlestick maker. Just getting excited watching Tyson Fury box does not mean that you can box. Even if you want to. Even if you'd like to respec your character. Be reborn. 13 years of sheer dedicated effort. And that's why a lot of us just quietly slip back into our box and close the lid down tight and hold it down tight. I'm a guitar player. I'm holding it down. I can do this. I can do this. 14 years. I can do this. The moral of this story, there isn't enough time to be the person you want to be. It just isn't enough time. A lot of the subjects of these podcast episodes come down to my fear of time, my knowledge, my sheer understanding that there isn't enough time to achieve what I want to achieve. But what happens there is that 13-year hurdle. Could you now dedicate yourself to something and achieve it? Yes, you could. Are you willing to put the 13 years in? Look at yourself. What have you mastered? I would say I've mastered, to the extent that I need to master it, the guitar, audio production, using digital audio workstations. I've done it for years. I think I've put in the 10,000 hours over my lifetime. Over the last decade or so, every evening, every day, every weekend, weekend in, weekend out, evening in, evening out, day in, day out, video production. Photography. I consider that I've mastered photography. Music, guitars, video production, audio production, photography. you can probably come up with more than one thing to define your real life RPG character. Personality traits. If you can pick something about yourself that you know you're good at and invest and work towards, like the pinnacle of what you're working towards is part of your personality. I did it with YouTube. Everything we just talked about, music and audio production and video production, I combined it with the fact that I can just emote. People don't necessarily like me for it, but at least I'm not. At least being Marmite is better than just being Mite. You find the thing that your real life RPG character stats and traits show that you're good at, and you roll with it, you run with it, you pick the baton and you run to the finish line. Going back to the last episode of this podcast, the best art often comes from collaboration because it's about those RPG statistics. You consider yourself white, brown hair, guitar player. You then meet up with someone who considers themselves drummer, someone else who considers themselves singer, someone else who considers themselves bass player, DJ. Get together. That's 10,000 hours a piece, 14 years a piece. Hundreds of years of dedicated, intensive practice in that room, recorded. That's why the Beatles made it. That's why the Stones made it. The Strokes, Coldplay, the Arctic Monkeys, Kanye West. People who accept that they can't be experts in everything. They assemble greatness around themselves. In the movies, you've got a great director who knows they need a great director of lighting, a great editor, great writers, great actors. It all comes together. And the film may say Quentin Tarantino, but it means everything. It's 10,000 hours there, 10,000 hours there. Hundreds of hours of dedicated, intensive practice and expertise. But it doesn't stop me wishing I could have a larval tear in real life so that I could approach Renala in real life and say, Renala, I want to be reborn. I want the rebirth you're offering me. I want to respec. Imagine shifting those units into intelligence. Becoming the next Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or into strength. Winning world's strongest man, or winning the mixed martial arts or the boxing heavyweight champion of the world. Becoming something. Resetting yourself when you get to my age and you watch other people achieving greatness and wishing that you too could do that, and then realising that it's impossible. Respecking yourself. Being reborn. That can't happen. So we all need to surround ourselves with the best people. The best people. Until next time. Over and